Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and it's time to really do an update of everything that's kind of gone on via what is on every single social media website, every single television news station. Really, you can't get away from it. Of course, I'm talking about the coronavirus. How can you get away from it, right? And there's a few things before we get to the actual news that I think we need to address. First of all, I want to make it very clear. No matter how deadly you think this is, no matter how much hype you think this is, the mobilization has already begun. And whether you like it or not, this does not end at Easter. Okay? I wish I had better news for you. And that isn't like me trying to put fear on you and fear porn. I'm going to explain why in a second. What I do want to start with, and thumbs this video up, subscribe, share if you're new, is a few of the things that we do know are out there that can be used to combat this thing. Look, the hydrochloroquine, it may have really bad side effects, but obviously it's better than a respirator, right? There is another drug we're going to be going over. I think it's called Jessalyn, which also has promising trials on it. Thank you so much for that sticker flick off. I do appreciate it. And I encourage everybody, I tweeted this out, mesenchymal, I'm butchering that, stem cells. So a treatment of stem cell injections. You have the intravenous vitamin C. So right out of the gates, before we get anywhere, okay, I want to say that all of those things are out there right now that seem to have a positive effect versus this virus, this COVID-19 coronavirus. Let's say it again. Without the ventilators, you have vitamin C transfusions, IV transfusions. They do take some time. They are large scale. Obviously, you could try to get your immunity up anyway, but that's always good to do. All right? Then you have what? What we just talked about, the stem cells. We have the hydrochloroquine, okay? And there is, let me see if I can find that right now. Yes. So, and this is the other one that is now being touted. And all these are non-vaccine related, okay? And it's called Gelsolin, okay? So this is another therapeutic. It could be used. I wanted to get that out of the way because I think it's really important, okay? Now let's talk about the next thing. I keep seeing now the next part of this fantasy on message boards is that there's going to be a 10-day shutdown and don't worry about it. Well, here's how fantasists will interpret that. Say there are rolling blackouts. In other words, power is cut in certain areas or even internet is cut in certain areas. Whether that lasts for 3 or 4 days, they'll somehow morph that into their story. All right, maybe if it happens for 2 weeks, they'll morph that into their story. If a site goes down, right, a board or something like that, they'll morph that into their story. It can constantly morph like clay because it's not real. Now, what is real? What's very real is the mobilization happening in New York. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether you think the whole thing is a hoax or not, again, the mobilization of this is very real, okay? So we now have expanded morgue space in New York City via the military with ICE trucks. Now you can tell me whatever you want, but to me, that's going to go away. That shows me that they're preparing for death. And again, no matter what you think about this virus, it doesn't seem like we're prepared to take the steps necessary to test people and get them on the drugs we need en masse, right? And just like in Italy, for instance, it seems like we're going to see, unfortunately, a lot of death, guys. I wish I was wrong about this, but why would every other nation, Spain, I watched a very disturbing video out of Spain today, Italy, have these problems, all right? And we've shown you the military training in February in North Carolina, where it looks like it's about to get bad. Now Nozdrek says this is a totalitarian, dystopian grabbing hold. It is. I'm not arguing against that. This is giving these people every kind of right in the world. And the other big fantasy that's going around right now is somehow Trump has absorbed the Federal Reserve into the Treasury Department and defeated the Federal Reserve. If you believe that, I mean, I don't know what kind of world you live in. If you believe Donald Trump single-handedly just defeated the Federal Reserve during a global crisis, I mean, I have no words. I have no words. I do have evidence to show you that this is happening in places like my small town. And we're going to get into that because looming martial law throughout New York State is real. I've talked to you about people in the nursing industry here getting draft-like letters to come down to downstate and work. I've now got word, again, my local Hampton Inn is now renting out to have more medical personnel come in here. I'm going to get to the Delaware County cases and how they track back to basically a military industrial complex aerospace facility. So why is this a slow rollout on top of everything? Not only the infrastructure, but they just raised the economy up with that $2.2 trillion bill. They've given people yet another false sense of hope. So let's talk about the people that are telling me, well, Jason, they've got it under control in China. I don't know that they do. Why are we believing people like George Gao of the CDC, who sits on that Event 201 panel, when now we know that Italy apparently has more deaths than China? Well, again, I want to make it clear. You know, this was China very active from January 1st to the 20th. And you can see it was very active because that represents the pollution. And then you can see a real shutdown. We in this country still have not shut down anywhere near like that. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Nowhere near that. Then the supply chain is broken. And what do? We barely report that they moved the Uyghur Muslims from their forced labor camps over into over 80 factories. Apple, Nike, BMW, Samsung, Sony, Volkswagen. Now, here's the thing. Through that, we saw some horrific videos. Or maybe you didn't because you're new to this channel. And thumbs up, subscribe, share if you're not. We're going to get to some of those videos in a minute. But with Italy, a country of 60 million, versus China, a country of 1.2 billion, already having more deaths, we have to assume that China lied about the numbers. And we know that there's those reports from the Epoch Times and others. But now, out of Bloomberg, they're talking about stacks of urns in Wuhan that are asking the question of what the real death toll is. So right away, because of the control of information, because of the desire to keep markets moving, because of the desire to empower the predator class no matter what, and stop us, the people, from panicking, no matter what you believe about these things, they lied. All right? So then all those people that tell me that it is under control, oh, we're going to have to go back here, okay? We're going to pause that. We're going to turn that down. Under control. I'm just going to show them a fraction of some of the more recent videos. Because you got to understand, this stuff was done in China. Have we done this in the United States yet? We certainly haven't locked down like this. And I know that nobody's seen huge trucks spraying stuff everywhere. We're going to get to this in a second. Ian Zargos, hey, Jason, what do you think about Canada? I live here, but I'm originally Iranian, and I pray for you all, good people of the U.S. It's eventually going to bleed into your area, too. You're going to see the same measures. Again, New York. They're not, de Blasio's not talking about the Depression for no reason. Cuomo's not telling people in meetings today at the Javits Center that's been restructured as a hotel that they're going to remember this day 10 years down the line, much like a 9/11. All right, there's a reason I told you this is a slow rollout. 1929, right, an economic grab meets 9/11 with deaths. Because, listen, 9/11 in America, 3,000 plus, right? What's this really going to be like if we're already seeing that in Italy? Remember, we're already seeing that in Italy. Italy doesn't have a handle on this yet. And again, I want to go back to those that didn't see the beginning before I show you some of the things that China did to, quote unquote, get it under control, if you believe them. that, look, there are other treatments out there. That's what we should be doing, is testing and treating. Treating with the vitamin C, intravenous IV, definitely. Treating, obviously, with a boosted immune system, but with the hydrochloroquine when necessary. We just saw that other drug that I was just talking about. And then we were talking about MSC, that certain type of stem cell injections, right? Those are all things that we need to focus on. And if you're watching this, you need to blast. You can check out all the links over on my Twitter. Blast those out on social media, because that's information that needs to be shared. Maybe that puts down the fear. But let's get to the reality, okay? These are a lot of the videos the media didn't show you, all right? And so when you say that Asia or South Korea or Taiwan or any of these countries have this thing under control, we've taken nowhere near these measures that you're looking at. And they certainly have not really been shown to the vast majority of the public. Thanks for your hard work keeping us informed. What do you think about multiple waves like Spanish flu and a bioweapon do a mutated second wave? I know that's being promoted, and it could be the forever enemy. I want to get some scientists on, obviously. I was reaching out to Matt McCarthy earlier because he was one of the more honest people a few weeks ago of where this was headed in the United States. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with everything he says. But as far as the mutation goes, I mean, that way you have the forever enemy. It's hard for me to make any judgments out there except for what is the first thing to go in any sort of a crisis. And this is, again, China going down, and those are bodies. And those aren't sick bodies. Those are donezo bodies. And this isn't like a Hollywood production, guys. I'm sorry, this isn't fake news. So, again, China, obviously, to get it under control, what did they do? They suppressed information and lied about the numbers. Okay? That's how I feel about it. All right? And again, the mutation thing, let's find out how we can treat this. I'm not for the vaccine, but obviously that's out there. And we're going to get to other news stories. Bill Gates, for instance, who his foundation helped run Event 201, which I've been going in depth on. Right? He says 6 to 10 weeks, minimum, strict lockdown. I mean, do we have this to get it under control? Oh, China got it under control, huh? Oh, South Korea got it under control. I haven't seen any of this stuff. I'm sorry that I'm showing you some of the graphic realities of how this went down. But, this is what's out there. I'm going to skip past the body guy. See if we can get over to here. But here's yet another one where, a woman's just slumped over. And this is not stuff you're seeing in the mainstream media. And I'm not trying to put fear into people, but when they say, China got it under control, we haven't even seen restrictions like this. This is a shop. It's basically warding everybody off. I mean, this is frightening. And I'm not telling you to be scared of the virus. I'm saying these are the restrictions that they've gone to in some of these countries. And obviously, because you can't get real information out of there. Oh, and this is a bunch of people being run down. I'm going to skip over that, but this one gets kind of live. Basically, you'll see them pan down, and you'll see a bunch of people who are not supposed to be out. And de Blasio today was talking about stricter regulations on groups of people. All right? And yeah, I mean, they really do get chased down. This is pretty nutty stuff. You're not seeing this type of stuff in our media. So think what you want, but did China really get it under control? Now let's talk about Trump for a second and the reality. Anybody can check this clip out. I'm not going to play it again. But you have Pompeo, ex-CIA head, who's the Secretary of State, talking about how they're in a live exercise and Trump getting visibly upset and saying, you should have told us. Okay? That very much tells me that he was in the dark on the majority of this. And again, they were padding the stats just like you see in Event 201 to keep business and commerce afoot and panic away from the public. Bogus Hype says they had to have those spraying machines built in advance. I mean, did they? Did they? Because they built hospitals very quickly. And by the way, it may have been spraying something else. We could be talking about crop type things and then retrofitting. Why in advance? This happened months ago. Stop thinking small. They built hospitals in weeks. You know, this is a bigger deal than people are realizing. And, you know, a lot of people are telling me this is fake news. I don't know what to believe, but I do believe that the idea that we were told this is just going to affect the elderly was, again, false assurance, patting us on the head before the real panic ensues. This is about the 17-year-old who apparently was twice turned away in California because he didn't have any insurance. That's lovely, eh? And some people are saying this is a hoax, that he didn't have COVID-19. And, you know, I don't know what to tell you about that, but I do know there's a dead person. And this is that other drug we were talking about outside of just the hydrochloroquine. This is a different one called gelsolin, okay? This is another thing you're not seeing. You're not seeing the riots that are happening. So again, does China really have it under control right now? I don't know that they do. I don't know that they do. It's a mystery to me why people think that everything has gone back to normal in other parts of the world, and they have this false reassurance. Now, this is in New York. This is video coming out of New York. This is in Jamaica, Queens, and I'm not going to play the video, but, I mean, it looks like it's starting to get overstacked. And people, again, are going to cry, hoax, 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 hoax. Guys, I'm in New York. I know that health workers are getting ready. I know that they're being deployed. All right? So one way or another, they're gearing up for something, for a lot of sick people. And again, Lord Gates, I'm not saying listen to him. I'm just showing you how he's being promoted as an authority figure, as a hero in this moment. He says 6 to 10 weeks, extreme shutdown. We better listen to Mr. Microsoft. He's told us so many things. You know, we've talked about some of the drones that are going to be deployed. Well, now a lot of these surveillance cameras are going to be coronavirus detecting. Again, Track Trace Database Society, geolocated. We're here. Dauntless Dialogue finally went to the 5G corona rabbit hole. Fascinating scientific connection. Wuhan was the first to roll out in China, plus lots more. We'll send a link. You know, I've seen that stuff, and I'm just not buying it. Perhaps, you know, it weakened people's immune system because we know that goes on with the DNA. But again, because the 5G 60 hertz spectrum is going to be a different, how should I say this, deployed differently in a lot of places. I don't believe it, my man. I don't believe it, Riva. But let's continue on. Again, not saying it couldn't weaken your immune system and make you sick and more susceptible to something like this. 4 dead on a cruise ship heading to Fort Lauderdale. Obviously, they're saying coronavirus on this, but I'll just say this. It's not normal to have a bunch of deaths on these ships out of nowhere. Let's just put that out there, okay? And remember, this is the stem cell treatment. And guys, by the way, this is put out by the Physiological Society. So this might actually be an approved source you can share with people, an authoritative source. And it's kind of criminal. You see what I'm saying? This has been around since March 23rd, 4 days. It's got 2,000 views. This video will have more views than that. Here, I'm going to put this in there so people can't call me a fearmonger and a panic maniac. I'm putting in there what looks to be a very promising treatment. But you notice how our society has never really promoted the use of stem cells? Why is that? They work. So I'm about to take on some of the trolls here. What you have here is this is something that came out of Otsego County today where I live. Safer at home. Safer at home. And I hashtagged it martial law. And there's a bunch of critics over there, you know, keyboard tough guys. Oh, why does this mean martial law, Jason? You're such a liar, Jason. You're just padding your bank account, Jason. Let me read this. While it is our custom to welcome travelers from outside of Otsego County who visit and stay at a second home, short-term rental, motels, and hotels, during this unprecedented public health emergency, visitors may be seeking refuge from COVID-19 hotspots. We remind you that this is a global pandemic. You and your families have a critical role to fulfill in halting the rapid spread of the coronavirus, which can be dangerous, even fatal, especially to the elderly as people with underlying health conditions. They keep repeating that. Both you and our residents are safer at home. You should not have an expectation that resources will be available to you here that are not also available to you in your own hometown. In other words, get out of here, college kids. And if you're staying in hotels, we're already renting them out. Like I said, the Hampton Inn being contracted for workers. Now, in neighboring Delaware County is a place called Amphenol Aerospace Operations. And this is going to speak to the slow rollout of the economic shutdown, right? Apparently, the cases that are confirmed in Delaware County, I believe 4 of them, are all connected to this manufacturing plant for the military-industrial complex, right? They're going to need to keep this going no matter what, especially if this is going to be one of the places that is developing, whether it be ventilators or masks or any of the equipment and gear that's going to have to go to hospitals. Well, they got 1,000 people working there, and they certainly don't want to test people that are asymptomatic. And this has been the problem from the get-go. They always were going to a point of contact, and they didn't want to test asymptomatic. And if you were symptomatic, you had to go through hoops, etc. And we've already got community spread all over. So basically what I'm telling you here is, these people still have jobs. They're still essential workers. They're all going to work, and they're going to continue to go to work. And they'll only get tested if they're not asymptomatic. You get what I'm saying? Slow rollout of this whole thing. And that's why there's limited information going out every day through Cuomo's mouth. I get it. A lot of people like Cuomo better than Trump because he's got a more reserved tone. The devil's in the details, guys. He's telling you, Depression era, World War II, 9/11. You're going to remember this forever. He saw 4 more spots. Now there's going to be 8 that are retrofitted. In Elmhurst, New York. All right? Out by Niagara, Buffalo, Western New York, they already have quarantine centers I saw on their local news today. And in order to get tested at these centers, all right, that are makeshift centers, you have to set up an appointment. It's one of those drive-through centers. They're everywhere. In fact, let's go back to that New York one really quick. All right, that's the New York hospital. But all over the state, and by the way, there it is running through. All over the state, let's see, is this it right here? Next. Yes. Even though that's older, you can see where a lot of these makeshift centers are now being put up, like this one here. They call them hot zones. See, now this one's on Staten Island. All right? Do you see this slow rollout, the expansion through New York? And remember, de Blasio told you what's happening in New York now is going to be going nationwide. And I have no reason not to believe him because people are still out of work. Bills are being passed that would never be passed before. All right? And what's the answer? Global government, says Gordon Brown. Remember, the current UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, he just tested positive for COVID-19. And by the way, I know that a lot of you out there are going to say, well, how do we know? And I agree. Why are we believing politicians? But at least that's what the mainstream media is saying. And Gordon Brown, that's going to be on a G20, conference call, talking to all again. Gordon Brown's not currently elected to anything at all. But he wants global government. That's what he needs. That's how we'll tackle the coronavirus. And what did they push in Event 201 again and again and again? And we're going to continue in that series, Global Government Solutions. Okay? And one of the other things I want to focus on is right now, the clemency for prisoners, that's trending all across the nation. New York is continuing to let out more people. LA is letting out more people. New Mexico is letting out more people. Arizona is letting out more people. Washington State is letting out more people. And if you don't understand, that's to stop prison riots that happened all across Italy. Okay? Italy had riots, guys. I want to make that very, very clear. The mainstream media has not told you everything. All right? And that's why you're seeing the releases of these people. All right? That's the truth. I mean, listen, Times are changing, guys. They're changing. So if you're new to the channel, thumbs this up, subscribe, share, join the Burmist Brigade. We cover a plethora of topics. In fact, YouTube censored one of my videos today on Epstein in Spain. I got like a defamation claim against me that somehow now it's geo-blocked, and I should do a video on that. I should do a video on the sexual allegations against Biden. I think I'm going to get there. I think I'll do like an AMA on all the other news out there that's important on top of this. But until then, guys, please go check out my documentary films, Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies. That's 9/11. That's important. But Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture couldn't be more important right now, free in the documentaries playlist section. If you want to financially support me, $5, $10, $15, big donors, means the world to me. We hit our goal this month, which is awesome. Everybody who knows me knows I spent it basically on 6 months of supplies for my family. We have 6 months of food. I thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you guys. Really do appreciate it. On top of that, it looks like we're going to get at least one exclusive over at Rockfin on Tuesdays at a specific time. And I got to talk to somebody about that. But, I want to get back into the swing of 5 exclusives on Rockfin and doing this 3 to 7 times a day. But as you can see, these videos are so long and so in-depth, and I'm doing guest spots everywhere. And quite frankly, it's draining to watch all this stuff. Let's see. Bogus Hype says plenty of topics to hit. Keep it up. Gonna try. So, guys, once again, I want to say I love you. It's not about left or right. It's about right and wrong. And we deal with facts here. We deal with truth. And that's not to say that everything we just went through is factually. That's to say that this stuff has all been reported. You got to take a look at it for yourself and make up your own mind. We'll see you on the flip. Thank you.